When we talk about national security, few issues are as urgent today for India as the situation along the line of actual control, the disputed front with China. This border has seen repeated military standoffs, incursions, and tensions between two nuclear-armed powers. The key question is, does India need to take a more aggressive approach to protecting its border with China? And based on the pattern of Chinese actions, the geographic realities, and the need for credible deterrence, the answer is a resounding yes. First, we need to look at the pattern of Chinese behavior along the border. China has relied on incremental tactics to change the status quo on the ground. Instead of a large invasion, the People's Liberation Army, or PLA, has pushed into more disputed areas. It's established new outposts and challenged Indian positions in ways that are small individually, but significant cumulatively. According to the Council on Foreign Relations, China has reportedly conducted incursions in multiple sectors along the LAC, including face-offs that raise the risk of unintended escalation. A clear example of this pattern was the 2020 Galvan Valley clash, where Indian and Chinese troops engaged in close quarters combat, resulting in fatalities on both sides. This was the first loss of life on the border in decades and showed China was willing to use force even under existing confidence-building mechanisms. India's restrained response in the aftermath did not deter future posture. Instead, it highlighted the restraint alone has proved insufficient to prevent China from testing India's resolve. A second reason India needs to take a more aggressive approach is strategic importance of geography. The Himalayan frontier is among the most difficult military environments in the world. At altitudes exceeding 10 or even 15,000 feet, harsh weather and limited mobility make rapid reinforcement and infrastructure really critical. China has invested heavily in infrastructure along its side of the border, including roads, airfields, and logistic hubs, giving it operational advantages in any potential conflict. For many years, India has hesitated to build smaller infrastructure out of concern that it could invite provocation, but that caution has had a major cost. Until recently, India's lack of roads and forward bases limited its ability to patrol the region effectively and respond quickly. In response, India has accelerated border infrastructure development. But infrastructure alone is not enough. Infrastructure must be paired with a posture that actively denies the Chinese incursion into their space, including aggressive patrolling and the rapid positioning of forces in key sectors. Otherwise, India remains reactive rather than an actual deterrent, allowing China to maintain their initiative of expansion. And third, an essential point involves deterrence and strategic signaling. A more assertive approach to its border defense does not mean seeking conflict. It means reducing the likelihood of conflict and by making the cost of aggression clear. Strategic theory shows when ambiguity is perceived and weakness is perceived, it can invite escalation. When adversary believes it can act without serious consequences, it has an incentive to test boundaries, especially China to India. Conversely, when a state signals strength and resolve, it encourages restraint by their adversary, which can be seen in this scenario. In the India-China context, China often tests Indian response through incursions of patrol and confrontations. A policy of firm enforcement and territorial claims combined with clear communication that incursions will be met with proportional and strong responses, it creates a credible deterrent from India to China. As scholar Rajeshi Rajapalapin has noted, India must adopt a posture that ensures it's not perceived as unwilling to defend its territory, because dependence is ultimately about the perceptions of India's resolve. And also is important to consider the broader strategic context. The Indo-Pacific is increasingly defined by competitions between China and a network of regional powers, including India, Japan, Australia, and even the United States. How India manages its border with China affects not only the bilateral dynamics between the two of them, but also regional stability and alliance politics as a whole. If India appears unable or unwilling to defend its own territory, it weakens its standing as a credible strategic partner. Conversely, a more assertive defense posture reinforces India as stabilizing power, capable of holding its ground against expansionist pressures from its east. Domestic credibility is another vital factor. Borders are not abstract lines, but they symbolize sovereignty and state authority. The repeated reports of Chinese incursions have generated public concern and political pressure within India. A government that appears passive risks eroding domestic confidence in its ability to protect its own nation. And by contrast, a more assertive border policy, one that includes transparency about encouragements, stronger forward deployments, and clear messaging, strengthens the trust between the state and citizens that the government is fulfilling its primary duty of defense. To be clear, advocating for a more aggressive approach does not mean advocating for all-out war. It does not mean reckless abandonment of diplomacy or escalating as much as they need. A more aggressive posture means being proactive rather than reactive, pairing infrastructure with presence and signaling clearly that incursions will be countered decisively. It means adopting tactics that increase the cost of aggression for China, thereby reducing the incentive for further boundary testing. In conclusion, India needs to be more aggressive and have a more aggressive approach to protecting its border with China, because restraint has not stopped incremental aggression. Geographic realities favor proactive defense, and credible deterrence requires strength and clarity. In a world with rising competition between great powers, ambiguity at the border is not stability, but vulnerability. For India to secure its domestic security and to uphold its sovereignty, and even to maintain its strategic standing in the Indo-Pacific, it must protect its border with determination, with resolve, and at all costs. Thank you.